Hey guys, so for my presentation for consumer behavior, I picked the Bud Light Game of Thrones commercial from Super Bowl 53, which it aired my sophomore year of college, beginning of the spring semester. I remember it fondly because I was taking another marketing class where we had to talk about the Super Bowl commercials. We spent a whole day talking about them. And that was one of the key ones that came up since it's kind of such a big deal. Obviously, just starting off, it was by Bud Light. Bud Light's one of the largest brewing companies in the United States, and it's kind of well known all across the world. It's a brand of Anheuser-Busch, but for the most part, people just say Bud Light. They automatically think Bud Light. They don't think Anheuser-Busch. In 2016, it had a 45% market share, so it's a pretty big company. It includes different types of beers. They got Bud Light Platinum, Lime, Orange. They most recently came out with seltzers since in 2019, 2020, seltzers kind of just took over the world. Getting into the commercial, it starts off. You see the Bud Knight who kind of he became the new figurehead for the company as they moved on. He's just a big blue knight that's got Bud Light all over him. That and the Bud Knight, or the Bud Light King and the Bud Light Queen. And it starts off just there's a jousting tournament, which I mean back in the day or medieval times, a jousting tournament was probably the closest thing they had to a big sporting event like the Super Bowl. So that's kind of a big tie-in since the Super Bowl is one of the biggest sporting events in the world today. In it, the Bud Light and Game of Thrones collaborated for a commercial. In the beginning, you don't really know it's a Game of Thrones commercial yet. You just see Bud Light because it starts off and there are vendors who are selling Bud Light and walking out Bud Light cases. And as it goes on, you see the king and the queen. They're sitting there talking. They're holding Bud Lights, and the king talks about how good life is, says he's got a Bud Light. And then you see the Bud Knight come up on his horse, about to get ready for the joust, and he pulls out 3 Bud Lights that he has hidden and gives away. And then they start the joust, and they don't show who the opponent is. So you just kind of see him get on his horse and take off, and then you see him just he gets knocked off his horse and he's laying on the ground. Everybody's kind of taken back that the Bud Knight's defeated because he's kind of this big, I don't say mythical figure for them or heroic figure for them. And then the Mountain from Game of Thrones comes up and he doesn't say anything. He just stands over him and kills him real quick. But the purpose of the commercial is obviously to consume, or for the persuade consumers who are of age, above 21, to buy Bud Light, and also to watch Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones it's a really graphic and mature show, so you kind of have to be a certain age. I don't have to, but it's required. Not required. No, you're supposed to be a certain age to watch it. It's mature. Um, so like I said, they're kind of shooting for the same demographic. And since the Super Bowl, since it's such a big stage, I think it costs $5 million for a 30-second airtime commercial, and the commercial itself was a minute, so that cost nearly close to $10 million just to air it. I think obviously the point of the commercial is to persuade people to buy their beers. There's for persuade people to buy and consume Bud Light because it's a consumable product, and obviously the Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light want people to drink their product. And recently they had commercials where they weren't really, they're kind of talking about how their beer's better. They don't use corn syrup. They don't use this like other beer brands do. And then also kind of since the final season of Game of Thrones was coming out, which is obviously Game of Thrones was like the biggest show in media for 5-6 years. So by tying the two of the biggest names in their fields on the biggest stage of them all, which is the Super Bowl, is kind of a big deal. I have a few theories kind of for why or what they're doing in the commercial. One was the Hawkins Stern impulse theory, which obviously people like beer. I like beer. People like to drink beer. But when you're at a sporting event or something like that, you see other people drinking beer, and you kind of just automatically think, hey, I need to buy this beer, even though you don't really need it. And it's super at football games and stuff like that. A beer will cost you $7-8. So I think they were trying to do an impulse buy, tying in with the big sporting event. You're at a sporting event, you're at this, you're somewhere, you're at a concert. Everyone else has a beer. Why not I just go buy a beer? And then another one is just the humanistic theory, kind of how you want to fit in, like I said, with the impulse buy. hey, you see everyone else has a beer and you're standing there with that one. It's like, oh, I kind of feel weird. I feel like I need to have a beer in my hand. I feel like I need to, be consuming something. So you go buy a beer. So that's what I think the two theories they're shooting for were. The involvement, obviously, like I said, Bud Light. The first thing you see is Bud Light cases, and there are people drinking Bud Lights all across the tournament. The Kings got one. The Bud Knight's got Bud Light on his armor. The horse has Bud Light on his armor, and they just bring it up. And then Game of Thrones really isn't involved until about 30 seconds, 40 seconds in when you finally see the Mountain. And he doesn't really say anything. All he does is he just kind of stands over the Bud Knight and then kills him. And then right after that, a dragon from Game of Thrones comes in and just kind of burns everybody up. So there really isn't a whole lot of involvement from Game of Thrones except that. And at the end, they show a hashtag. Like after everything, they show the Bud Knight laying there dead, and they just show the hashtag for the upcoming season. They don't in this commercial, like I said, they don't really mention um, why you need to drink Bud Light. They don't really give you a reason to. Like they don't really tell you or talk about why it's better or how they make it or how it's healthier for you. But they focus on their demographic by relating it to a major sporting event, which beer is a huge thing in sports. You see it all over football games, baseball games. And like I said, it just ties into the impulse theory that you need to buy. You need to have a beer at a sporting event. Some suggestions I have to make the commercial better is maybe to throw in a little more Game of Thrones. I've never seen it. I've never seen a single episode, but I knew who the Mountain was as soon as I saw him, just because it's such a household name. I've seen pictures of him and stuff like that. But he doesn't say anything. No one mentions it's the Mountain. No one mentions the dragon. It just kind of all happens really quickly at the end. One other suggestion is the dilly dilly catchphrase that they used in many Bud Light commercials. It kind of took the world by storm. I mean, anytime anybody heard dilly dilly, they'd instantly think, beer, Bud Light. So maybe put that in there because it's just in there once. It's in the beginning. That's all the suggestions I have. For effectiveness, it was a pretty effective commercial because it made me want to drink a beer when I saw it. And then also, like I said, I've never seen Game of Thrones, but it made me really want to watch it, even though I still never did because I don't have HBO. But it kind of enticed me. It made me more interested in definitely the show. After it aired, it definitely had the world talking. I remember seeing tweets about it. Like I said, I spent a whole class period talking about just that commercial. It was just such a big tie-in and just a big collaboration between two powerhouses. That's why. And it also helped excite fans for the final season of Game of Thrones. And that's it. So yeah, the Bud Light Game of Thrones commercial from Super Bowl 53.